everybody, and how are we all doing today? Just making some last minute alterations. It looks like I'm slightly out of focus, doesn't it? Let's just go that way. There we go. That don't look too bad. Sorry. Everything's suddenly gone mad at the last minute. How are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 24th of September, 2023. This is, of course, the live show that we do, the Veg Army Gathering, as we're starting to call it now. It is. So what we're going to be talking about today is why do we grow our own food? But before that, let's find out if anybody is actually out there. And right on the off, we've got Adrian saying hello, good evening to you. Digwell is out there saying, fooled you all, I got in early today. Hope you are all well. Who else have we got? We've got Kate out there. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Ballycillian Allotment Man is out there saying good evening all. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream is out there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Blowing a hoolie here in the Shire. Ooh, interesting. Ballycillian actually says, yeah, Turbo. Yes, Turbo. Gale Force winds here in Belfast. Something obviously going on along that side of the country. Highgrave Gas, evening all. Hope you've had a great week. Night really drawing in now. We have got Anna Jones. Good evening, Garners. Good evening to you. Chilly Kate, hello all. Just me in the chilly house tonight. Looking forward to a week of unemployment and lots of allotment time before I start a job a week later. Congratulations on your new job at a watercress production place, if I'm not mistaken. Chilly, as you're off this week, I will email you and see if we can record a podcast together at some point this week. Who else have we got? We have got Scott is out there saying good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. We have got Nicola. Nicola is out there. Evening, Richard. Lovely to be here with you back in Sussex again. I was wondering how your father is. Hope you are okay. Amanda is out there in the Facebook group. Good evening to you. Philly SPB is out there. Evening, everyone. Good evening to you. I think that is everyone. But of course, feel free to say hello if you are out there regardless. Now, you might be wondering what I've been playing with down here. And I'm going to put these back in. Yes, my headphones. And there's a very good reason why I'm doing this. This week, bit of a story about this. I was searching for a laptop charger and I opened this box where my wife said, oh well, yeah, I put a load of electronic stuff in there. And do you know what she found? Oh, that probably came through really bad. Oh, sorry, I'm hearing that. Sorry, everyone. She has found the phone. So what that means, which one was it? The phone lines, I think it was this one. The phone line is back open. We can start taking calls again on this very show. 07307 135 174. So good news on that. Good news on that. Andrew Norris has joined saying, evening, everyone. I'm in Dalmatia, is that? Getting ready for the grape harvest. How fantastic. We've got some fantastic grapes actually in our garden. That we're going to harvest. And Turbo Stream says it's Chilly Kate on allotment leave. Instead of gardening leave, it's allotment leave. So let's get into it. That's all the hellos done. But of course, feel free if you are new, if you want to join in, just say in the comments who you are and what have you, join in the conversation. So let's get into it. Why do you grow your own food? That's the question that I am asking. Now, this is a question I've been considering all week, and you've probably heard my story, so I don't need to get into that too much. But why do I still grow my own food? Because after all, I'm in a pretty lucky position. We're not struggling financially. We can afford to buy decent food. So why do I still grow my own food? For me, I still believe that regardless, everybody should be growing their own food. It is just, to me, the thing that makes the most amount of sense, regardless whether you got plenty of cash or not. It just makes sense. You get lower food mileage. Your food comes straight from the garden, straight into the kitchen. It produces much better, higher quality food that tastes better. So that's another reason that I like to grow my own food. And I guess the main reason is that I've got a sort of an instinct in me that I am, what's the word? What's the word? A bit like living the good life. I like to be a bit self-sufficient. So that's another reason why I personally grow my own food. So over to you guys. Let's see what's going on in the comments. I will keep adding a few of my own thoughts as we go on through. My dad has joined saying good evening. Hello, Dad. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream says, grow my own food was never a plan. More accidentally, I suppose. But what is it that you keep doing? Why do you grow your own food? What is it about it that you fell into it accidentally? What is it that keeps you going as well? Begs Christine says, happy colourful autumn, everyone. Been watching a while on the sidelines, but just joined the group. Lovely to see you, Bex. Please feel free to post any pictures or anything like that and join in the conversation. We're talking about, or I'm asking the question tonight, why do you grow your own food? It's the question I want to try and find out from everybody else. It's a difficult question to really, I think, when I've been thinking about this myself, a difficult question to really figure out the exact answer on why I do it. It's just, for me, it comes naturally. I don't understand why people don't grow their own food, in all honesty. It's something we do. We need to eat every single day. So why wouldn't we grow our own food? Hargrave Gas has came in. For me, it's all about the taste. Veg you grow yourself, always better than supermarket, and you can get interesting varieties. It's very true, isn't it? I do believe that homegrown veg tastes so much better. The fact that you can go and pick it, and within minutes it's being cooked or being eaten, it just is so much more full of flavour. But the interesting varieties, that's a very good note as well, because yes, we do get some different varieties. One of the best examples would be something like Tayberries. You don't really see Tayberries in supermarkets because they're not very good for transportation, but they do taste great straight out the garden. So yeah, you can get certain varieties that you can grow your own, or certain fruits and vegetables that you can grow your own that you won't find in supermarkets. Andrew Norris says, I grow for the satisfaction of producing my own food without chemicals, and I'm following in the footsteps of my late father. Yeah. So you're growing organically is the word, I guess. You're ensuring that your food is organic, Andrew. So that makes a lot of sense as well. Graham Arnold has joined. Evening all. Good evening to you. Turbo Streams says, I played snooker with a late friend of my 30s and he had an allotment for all of them years. We talked about allotment more and more so in 2020. He offered me his section of these plots. So that's how you got into it accidentally. Your friend encouraged you. What else? Let's see. I can't see anything yet. Ballysilians, excuse me. Ballysilian says, my answer would be for the pleasure and fulfillment of growing food for family meals. So you do it just for the pleasure and to feel fulfilled. That's a very, very good answer. I mean, gardening is cool, isn't it? Growing your own food is cool in our eyes. We love doing it. And I like the fact that you actually say your family meals, because I do believe that we should be sharing some of our produce as well if we've got plenty of it. Something I'm going to be doing a lot of. I know that. Idaho says, the food I grow tastes better and is healthier for me and less expensive. Okay, that's the expense side as well. I didn't think of that, but it's a very good point. I think everyone should grow something. I agree. I couldn't agree less. Everybody should be growing something, even if it's just a few herbs on a windowsill. It makes all the difference. Scott says, I grow my own so I can try varieties and fruit and vegetables I cannot get in a supermarket or even from veg suppliers that work cooking and growing. Don't think I could do one without the other now. Now, I think, Scott, in my opinion, I've come across quite a few chefs, obviously, in my day job. But what I've noticed is some of the best chefs are also interested in how the food is grown. So you are a prime example. You've taken an interest in how the food is grown. And I think more and more chefs are thinking about that. Obviously, we've got the organic side, but some of the best restaurants I've been in have actually got like a farm or a vegetable patch attached to it. And you'll go out there, you can see the food growing and then being cooked as well. They're not so common these days, but I do think that is a great restaurant. Chili Kate says, as a food scientist who married someone with a chefy background, I'm fascinated by every aspect of food production. Grow my own was a natural extension. I am also an outdoorsy person. So this is interesting, actually. Your food scientist married up nicely with Grow Your Own, and it's just fueled the desire, I guess, or fueled this hobby for you to grow your own food through you studying at work, your chef, and being an outdoorsy. Yeah, everything's come together. And created that for Chili K. That's great stuff. Ian McCragan, isn't it? Evening, Richard. Good to see you today. Good to see you earlier too. Was out on the walk earlier today and met up with the lovely Ian there. Kate says, for me, it's the satisfaction of seeing this small seed grow and become food. I want to reduce miles where possible. Fantastic. And you can't beat the taste of homegrown. And it's amazing for physical and mental health. Absolutely. Yeah. All these bonuses that come from it. All of which I think is a good bonus for everybody to grow their own food. But what is it that you really enjoy? That's the question. Why is it you keep growing your own food? The more, Idaho says, the more I can grow, the less I have to spend time and money going to the store. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Like, if it's saving time, if it's to save time, then gardening probably isn't the best way to do it. And, I think you spend more time gardening than going to a store. But it's so much more fulfilling, isn't it, gardening? So much better being fulfilled and growing your own food. But yeah, time and money, two big factors that I think we all wish we had more of. Turbo Stream, I was going to try a small section of grow a few things to see if I enjoyed it. Then David came along and I found myself with this half plot to tend by myself, as his wife said he couldn't come down. Yeah, so you accidentally offered this plot, got into it, had to expand, and now you're stuck with it. Excellent. Chili says, there's no gardening genes in my family, but Chili Phil's mum was a keen veg grower and introduced me to it. My own stepdad is now on the allotment waiting list. Doesn't that happen, isn't it? Once you start growing your own food and you share it, other family members suddenly become interested in it as well. I know of some people who one person has started and their wife has got an allotment, their children have got an allotment just because of them starting it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Ian says, I grow my vegetables for fresh and not sprayed with chemicals, plus the taste. So freshness, organic, and better flavour. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Digwell says, I agree that most veg tastes better when it's homegrown. Not all, though. Garlic is one that tastes the same home or supermarket grown. So not bothering with that in 2024. Yes, you're actually going to be on the sow along. We are planting out our garlic. And I actually mentioned you in that. So get ready for that. Turbo Stream says, continuing on his story, after he died, I decided I enjoyed the plot and the challenge, especially during lockdown, and the plot kept me sane during this time. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Martin Keenan moved into a new house with a large garden. Garden his son all day. It would be a sin not to grow fruit and veg. I'm a novice, but learning all the time, at least not thanks to the Veg Grower Podcast. I thought I recognised your name. Lovely to see you. Yeah, large garden. When I started the Veg Grower Podcast over 10 years ago now, one of the things that would annoy me is I would see on the news, I'm going to be on a bit of a rant, but I don't mean to offend anyone, I'll say that outright. But I would see on the news there was people who would come on and say they were struggling financially to feed their family. Now that's bad enough. But they would show a shot of their garden and it would be kids' toys and grass, not any vegetables growing. And I always felt that was a waste. And if you've got a large garden, why not use it to grow food? It just, to me, makes sense. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Bethan's Kitchen Garden. Evening all. Sorry I'm late. Hope everyone is well. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well, Bethan. What else have we got? Turbo Stream carries on. I now see the plot as a haven for the peace and quiet. Gets me out the house and helps with my mental health since the onset of tinnitus. Yeah, I completely see the advantages of it. Completely. Anna Jones says, I grow my own mainly for the enjoyment. I've tried many hobbies, but never been able to stop gardening. Just love it so much. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Over the years, I've tackled quite a few hobbies. I've got into quite a few things. I played the guitar. I've been a kickboxer. I have, oh crikey, my hobbies. I could write a list of all my hobbies, but the gardening, the veg growing particularly, has been something that I've always stuck with. Obviously, now I've got my own garden. I've had it for a few years, to be fair, but you know what I mean. And now I've had my own garden. It just seems to make more sense. Scott says, agreed, the best restaurants have kitchen gardens, more to inspire the chefs than to supply the restaurant. Yeah. I work for Cambridge Uni now and have been given the go-ahead for a kitchen garden on site that should be up and running in 2024. That is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Having it in a uni and getting a kitchen garden. Absolutely fantastic. This is the stories I like to hear. Digwell says, variety of choice has to be a big reason for me. 44 types of tomatoes this year. Crikey, 44 types. None available to buy as mature fruits. 44 types. That's quite a few, isn't it? How did you fit them all in? But yeah, different varieties. This is one thing I do love. Tomatoes is a good variety, or even potatoes. I think there's something like 600 different types of potatoes in the world. And if you go to a supermarket, there's probably only about 5 or 6 that you can usually choose from. So having a decent choice of potatoes makes all the difference, doesn't it? Makes all the difference. Idaho says, good point, Turbo. The garden is a calm place and the gardening activity is healthy. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. It's all about, well, talking of noise, I think a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that I read a news article. Somebody wrote into a newspaper complaining that one of the neighbours mowed the lawn always on a weekend. I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday. I read earlier today Alan Titchmarsh actually got involved and said that lawnmowers and garden tools should be banned on Sundays to give everyone the peace and quiet in their garden. Now, I sort of thought about that earlier today. I was reading it while I was on a walk and gave it some thought at the time. And I disagree in some ways. And let me explain why. I agree that everybody wants peace and quiet in their garden. But our gardens usually, if I take mine, we don't have a huge amount of space between each garden. We're 10 meters wide, and then we got our neighbours and so on. Another 10 meters, somebody else, and so on. Next door has their kids around on a Sunday. Kids make noise. I don't mind that. Dogs barking. Should all those, if we're going to ban power toys or garden tools from making noise on a Sunday, should we then ban other noises just to keep people's enjoyment of their garden up there? Don't think so. I don't think that's right. Turbo Stream says, the actual growing of food is an achievement. If I bring home produce, I doubt it saves me any money, but I seldom buy fresh vegetables anymore and consider myself self-sufficient in vegetables. Though I think as long as you're happy with what you're doing, that's all that matters. I often share a story that one person I knew, he used to grow runner beans. Didn't like runner beans. He just grew them because he enjoyed growing them. Now, I would have said in my younger years that was very wasteful, but now I've sort of mellowed a bit. And if that's what he enjoyed doing, all power to him. And the same with you. If you're enjoying it, then that's the main thing. And if you did get vegetables at the end of it, all the better. Idaho says, if I didn't want to grow my own food, there would be no point in having the size of the yard I have. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, Idaho. Completely agree. She also says, I like growing the different varieties completely. Digwell has just corrected me. Yes, 5,000 types of spuds worldwide, possibly 500 in UK. Gradually working my way through them. Yes, I was thinking when I said 600, I was actually thinking of refrigerant gas, believe it or not. But no, 5,000. There is a lot out there. I was looking into what varieties, for example, was a bit of a thing to try and do next year. What varieties McDonald's grow for their potatoes. There's so much choice out there. It's difficult to know what to do for the best. That's why we rely on each other, isn't it? Hargrave says, my 4 varieties of tomatoes sound inadequate compared to Digwell, but each tasted different and full of flavour. As long as you're happy, that's what all that matters, in my opinion. I grew quite a few different varieties of tomatoes this year. Some interesting ones, some really good ones. Digwell's seeds that he sent me did really well. I'm trying to think. There's probably about 10, maybe 15 different varieties that I grew. Unfortunately, blight came along. The one thing I should have done was grow blight-resistant varieties, but blight came along and killed the lot of my outdoor ones. My indoor ones are still going good. But yeah, 4 varieties, as long as you're happy with it, that's all that matters. Digwell says, some celebrities are better off seen than heard. Yeah, fair enough. And Andrew says most celebrities. um, yeah, I'm going to keep quiet on that one. Digwell also says, as you know, I do not like kale, but I used to grow it to give it away. Completely, yeah. I mean, I love kale. I love kale. So, good stuff. Term Extreme says, I tend to grow things that will store or I can freeze, also stick to the basics of produce, and am happy with that. Completely right. I've just worked out what you meant by most celebrities should shut up, talking about Alan Titchmarsh there. I didn't like that comment either. I know that's sacrilege to say that Alan Titchmarsh is wrong, but I didn't like that comment at all. Digwell does say that some of his tomatoes were well, some of them I would never grow again, even if I was starving. This is a great thing that we can try different varieties and actually work out what works and what doesn't, isn't it? Seeds are pretty cheap, especially if you're a member of the Veg Grower Podcast Supporters Club. Seeds are cheap, but to be able to grow all these different varieties and experiment with them, you get some great ideas of what works and what doesn't work. And again, something I've noticed is there's varieties that work great for me. They taste fantastic, but somebody else tries growing them and they're not as good. And I do think conditions make a difference. Your growing technique, as well as your own taste buds as well. There's a lot of difference in what we have. Ian says, I've just sown some sugar snap peas and hope they pod up before winter. They should do pretty good over winter, actually, and give you some early ones next year. I've just sown some of our early peas as well, so we can hopefully get those for next year. Turbo Stream says, I made a pot of swede, potato, onion, and kale soup today, all off the plot. I actually was pleased with myself that today's meal was grown with me. I used to love it when I used to sit down for a meal with Amanda, and I used to turn around to her and say, everything on this plate I have grown. It used to fill me with such satisfaction. I mean, now our freezer is just full of our homegrown produce. I've kind of got a bit blasé about that, but you are quite right. That's something to remind ourselves and think that when we sit down to meals and everything on that plate is grown by us, it's a good reminder of what we are to do. Scott says, I heard McDonald's spuds, the farmers that grow them won't go near them for a good month after harvesting with the stuff they put on them. Don't know on that. I'm more interested in the actual potatoes themselves and growing them and seeing how they compare. is my current thought. Talking of potatoes, actually, this does remind me. Digwell, when can we harvest the potatoes from your potato challenge? That's what I want to know. Idaho says, seriously, that would be, what would I be doing if I wasn't gardening? Sitting around watching TV? What's TV? No thanks. My garden and my chickens are a lot more entertaining and occupy my time in a worthwhile endeavor. I'm with you on that. I said to we don't have a TV anymore, so we don't actually sit down and watch TV. We have much more enjoyment for me going out in the garden, walking the dog, that sort of thing. I mean, I've never been one for watching much anyway, as I've said time and time again. Turbo Stream says to Digwell, I hate kale too, but chopped some up and blended it into my soup and didn't notice the taste. Good enough. Ian says, what do you have growing now to Idaho? Good question, actually. What do you have growing now? Andrew says, isn't it satisfying, Turbo Stream, to dig up your veg and go straight to the kitchen and make a complete meal from what you have grown? I think I've got a bit blasé about that, but now you've said it, it's just reminded me of that entire emotion that we go through when we do that. Bethan's Kitchen Garden says, I made a Sunday lunch with homegrown potatoes, sprouts, parsnips and carrots. I should have had homegrown Swedes too, but they were woody once cooked. Always a shame when that happens, but that's you've done it. You've grown a lot of that meal anyway. Idaho says, I'm harvesting tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, green beans, perpetual spinach and summer squash. Fantastic. Lots of stuff still going on, isn't there? Digwell says, of course, taste is subjective. 20% of Caucasian people think that coriander tastes like soap, and I am one of them. Yeah, there is something genetic about that, isn't it? I quite like coriander, but my wife never used to like it. She's actually changed now, but some people say it tastes as soap. And that is something in the people's genes. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. Nicola says, I'm missing my garden, but Dad comes first. So for those that don't know, Nicola said last week that her dad is a bit unwell and she's had to come back to Sussex. He's not doing so well this weekend. Had a heart wobble last night. Learn more tomorrow. X-ray shows the cancer spread from 3 weeks ago. I'm so sorry, Nicola. So sorry, but hope you are okay. I think, as Digwell says, wishing him the best from all of us here. Digwell, the chop date is 31st of October. Excellent. Cool. Turbo Stream says, it's also a skill to learn growing your own food. It's harder than it looks. It is harder than it looks. I was having a conversation with Ian about this today, and I sort of said, it's not something you can just walk in and make a success as such, although people do that. It is a skill. It takes time. It takes practice, and you get there in the end. But and not every year is the same. You learn how to work with the seasons, the weather, and so on. I don't know why I'm wobbling like that, but just felt right. It is a skill. You are completely right there. Nicholas says, commercially grown potatoes are sprayed 16 times in their life cycle. Last spray with weed killer to kill leaves off, so easier to harvest. The chemicals will go down into the tubers. That's why we don't like commercially grown or non-organic food these days. I mean, is there still non-organic food in the supermarkets? I guess there must be, actually. Ian says, sounds like a good harvest to Idaho. And Idaho says, still getting cucumbers, still getting blackberries. Peaches will be getting ripe in a couple of weeks. Really? As late as that for peaches? Tomatillos and ground cherries, as well as winter squash, going to be ready soon. What are ground cherries? I've often wondered this. I've seen this. What are ground cherries? Let us know. Digwell says, my mum had a cure for woody swede. Boil it for hours. Then again, she did the same with all veg. That's why we used to hate our school dinners, wasn't it? The Brussels sprouts at school, because they would boil it to death. Rebecca has joined. Hello, hope you are well. Evening, Richard. Sorry I'm late, just home from a day out. Excuse me. Did you have a good day out? That's the important thing, but lovely to see you. Nicholas says, on a positive note, my shed has been moved, new concreted blocks in the ground, new base. I'm guessing. Digwell says, happy to have a wonky carrot then. No carrot, agreed. And Bristol Veggie Bed says, I grow my own as a food storage. We never know what's around the corner. That's a very good point, actually, Bristol. As proven during that 2020 period when we went into those lockdowns and supermarkets were being stripped of all the food, it did go to prove just how delicate our food network is, buying it from a shop. So yeah, you are completely right that you never know what is around the corner. I don't want to go into the preppers sort of world, but you are completely right that, and it's the same. I've spoke on the podcast the other day that I've been practicing, or I'm starting to save a lot more of my own seeds, and it's something that I want to keep doing in the future. So again, you never know what's around the corner. For that very reason. Thank you all for my care and concern for the dad, says Nicola. You are most welcome. Right, I think this is a good time to go to a video, and I'm going to start off with the mission video that Digwell set the mission for. Right, this week's mission was set by Digwell, and what he set was to find a decent, consistent peat-free compost. And there's a particular peat-free compost that I've been using all throughout this year that I've had really good results with. It's always been consistently good, same quality, and best of all, it's one of the cheapest composts that I've been able to find. And this I buy from a shop called The Range, although I have seen it in a couple of other smaller garden centres as well. It's made by a company called Supergrow. 4 bags, 4 50 litre bags that is, for £10, which I'm pretty happy with. I found inside the compost to be of a decent consistency. Smells absolutely fantastic. If you give it a good smell, it smells absolutely brilliant. So there we go. That is this week's mission completed. Indeed, yes. The mission set by Digwell was to find consistent, good peat-free compost, and I've found that stuff. I've never had any problems. I usually buy it on a monthly basis, if I'm honest with you. When I get paid, I go into the range, I buy 4 bags, and I keep it here at home. I've got quite a stack of them at the moment. £10, you can't really go wrong, but it's always been good quality stuff as far as I'm concerned. But if anybody else has any thoughts on that very question, then let us know in the comments. Right, what have we got in the comments? So Turbo Stream is saying, I always make time on my lot to boil a kettle and have a coffee break. Love my little meths burner in my shed. I love the smell of a meths burner, but I'm with you. It is important whenever in the veg patch and in the garden, in the allotment and the garden, sorry, to take time and have a bit of a break and admire what you've done and what you've worked on. Agree. Kate says, when the TV and social media is so often full of negativity, tell me about it. Being around nature and the garden community is a break from that. Every single seedling that sprouts up makes me happy. Completely agree. Negativity breeds negativity, and we've got no time for negativity, is my opinion. Bethan says, it was cooking for about 40 minutes. I cooked up 3 Swedes and think one of them were woody and the other 2 would have been okay. I see. Digwell says Cape gooseberries. That's what ground cherries are. Okay, that makes sense now. Excellent. Idaho says on that, ground cherries are cousin to tomatillos. Digwell is right. They are sometimes called Cape gooseberries or physalis, I think it's also called as well. Good to know. Digwell, I'm down to my last 2 packs of toilet rolls from 2020. Went out and brought the lot. So there you go. And has also said physalis as well for the ground cherries. So that's great. Ground, they are so good, those things. My wife keeps telling me off for not growing them for her. So next year I've definitely got to grow those. Um, absolutely. Thank you. What have we got? Nicholas says, finally got to pick up my new veggie pod. Detour on with or back from Cornwall, 25 quid, new £368, new salad grown space for next year. Fantastic. I love my veggie pods. Great thing to grow in, especially in your circumstance, Nicola, with all the arsenic you have in your soil. Digwell says, never heard of that one. Off to source it. I think the range is where I've seen it, that compost. I have seen it in a couple of garden centres. I do think you can get it online, but it's bulk buying. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I worked out, as I said, 4 bags, that's 200 litres for £10. That's cheaper than bulk buying a 1 metre by 1 metre bag of compost as well. So that's why I keep stocking up on it every month and just keep it here ready to go. Probably more for use in beds as opposed to using in pots, as opposed to using in beds. But at that price, it's still worth it, I think. Ian says, my neighbours had loads of toilet rolls stacked in their conservatory. Maybe they were growing them. And Kate says, where can you get a bog roll plant from, please? Good question indeed. Interesting. Mind you, it's paper, isn't it? So if you're growing trees, technically you're growing toilet roll, I guess. If you know how to turn it, then if you know how to turn trees into paper, you can turn it into bog roll. Digwell says, I have some Cape gooseberries growing on my plot, just about maturing now. They're big plants, aren't they? They do grow big, but they are so tasty. Absolute fantastic. Kate says, what do you do with Cape gooseberries? So the most common thing I see them used is for like decorations at fancy restaurants, especially around Christmas time. It's sort of like a orangey yellow ball with the leaves that are folded back over themselves. They're used as a decoration, but the fruits are absolutely delicious. If you know what tomatillos are, they're very similar to those. They've just the leaves are folded back to you in a decoration. Hopefully I've described that well enough. I don't actually know what meals they're used in. You could probably make a jam out of them. They really are quite sweet. So give them a try first. Digwell says maybe the range would take over my local Wilco. You never know, actually. You never know. And Turbo Stream says the nearest the range is a 25-mile round trip for me. Our Wilco was rubbish on the garden stuff too. We'll see if Johnny this compost is worth with the extra next year. We've got to hope that all these compost companies are going to get better and better, because we have seen some poor stuff this year. But if it gets better and better, then hopefully that'll be better for all of us. I mean, a 25-mile round trip is not great for you, is it? Nicola says, I managed to buy the 100-litre Veer type compost bags, £4 each, bought 60 of them. So what's that, 6,000 litres? That's a lot. That's a lot. How did you get those home? Good stuff. Good stuff. Right. Anything else that I can see? Turbo Stream is saying, hopefully the leaf mold bin will provide a decent amount so I can sieve some and try and get the seeds off. Try the seeds off in that. I'm talking about, seed compost. Yeah, using a leaf mold bin to make your own seed compost. It's very good for that, apparently. I've not used it myself, but because it's very light, very low in nutrients, it is a way of making your own seed compost. There are mixtures that people share online where they take leaf mold and some garden soil, mix it all together to make their own compost mixes. That might be something we have to talk about at some point. Have we tried that one before? What else have we got? Nicholas says Cape gooseberries are really easy to grow. They really are easy, and they grow so well. So I really have got to look at growing more of them next year. That's on my list. Wicks and Homebase stock the Super Grow compost. I didn't know that. But that's useful to know. I'll have a look in Wicks later this week. Then, if they sell it, I'll get it from there. Is it at the same price as well? Let us know. I'm guessing you're on the website looking into it at the moment. TurboStream says our Wilco is going to be another Poundland, useless for anything garden related. Yeah, I mean Poundland does have some garden stuff in it, but you pay for what you get, isn't it? Their stuff is cheap. It's meant to be cheap, may not last. So yeah, I know what you're saying. I do think it's a shame Wilcos are gone, but you know, writing's on the wall. Hargrave Gas says, my Cape gooseberries taste disgusting. I'm worried I've got an ornamental variety by mistake. I don't know if there are any difference. They are quite packed with flavour. Don't know on there, Hargrave, I'm afraid. Nicholas says, Cape gooseberry expensive to buy in shops, a worthwhile homegrown fruit. It's very rare I actually see them grow or being sold in a shop. This brings us back to the main topic, isn't it? What we were saying earlier, that we can sometimes grow our own varieties of foods that aren't being sold in shop. And I very rarely see Cape gooseberries actually being sold in a shop. But when I grew my own, I did find actually they did last for a very long time, just in the fruit bowl. Basically, the storage potential of them was pretty long. Absolutely delicious, though. Absolutely delicious. TurboStream says, not seen the Super Grow compost in our Homebase or Wicks. Duh. I'm guessing Digwell was looking into it as we spoke there, searching it as we go. And says, Cape gooseberries never leave the glass house. Garden snack. They are tasty, I find. They are very tasty. But Digwell does say they can be bitter if they're not quite ripe. So perhaps that's what's going on with Hargrave. Not quite ripe. They're just a little bit bitter. Anne says, I once peeled paper back on a Cape gooseberry but left attached. Then dipped fruit partially in chocolate and left it to set in the fridge. That's a good idea. She does say that the family loved them. That's a very good idea, actually. Yeah, very good idea there. I'm guessing there must be something else we can do with them, though. Fully agree with Anne, says Nicola. My strawberries are often the same. They don't leave the greenhouse. Indeed. Digwell says Super Grow about £5 a 50-litre bag in Wicks, is that, or Homebase? Cheaper to go, much cheaper than to go to the range, assuming they will still be doing it. Idaho says the ground cherries do make a nice jam. So I thought they might be good for making jam, or Cape gooseberries, or physalis, as we call them as well. Yeah, I guess if you're looking for anything to do with those particular plants, ground cherries is going to be the big one. What else have we got? Ian says, I used to put all my grass cuttings in a Dalek bin standing on concrete and pot worms in, and got loads of compost every autumn. Just replace the worms after emptying the bin. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of trying to produce as much compost as we can, and this is a big thing that I'm going to be doing next year. Is I say it every year, to be honest. Try and produce enough compost that we don't need to buy it in. But I would prefer to use the compost that I produce on my beds as opposed to in my pots. I don't know why. I don't know why I prefer that, but that's something to think about, actually. But if we can produce enough that we don't have to buy any compost in, I would be very, very happy with that. Idaho says, I dehydrate the ground cherries and they're great. I didn't think of that. Didn't think of dehydrating them. So that's something to think about too. That's a good idea. Thank you. Scott says, love Cape gooseberries. Need to try them, try to grow them now. Now you've got this university option as well. Good stuff. Although never worked out why chefs just use them as a garnish. Guilty of doing it myself. I need to grow some and actually make something from them. Give it a try, Scott. Give it a try. I always think, whenever I think of them, I always think they are used as a garnish, and it's so underused. Ginny has joined when it comes up. Hello, sorry I'm late. Chasing my tail today. Hope you are well and had a great week. How's the house moving going, Jenny? Hope you are well. Lovely to see you. Turbo Stream says, another joy was managing to strike cuttings from the old red currant bush and making a new section in my soft fruit tree, hoping next year to get better crop than the second year. Yeah, taking cuttings. This comes back to growing your own food. This is one thing that I actually quite enjoy, is when we take cuttings from an old tree and we're able to keep that tree or keep growing from that same tree. I think that's always a good sign, isn't it? Always good to see. At this point, I just want to remind everybody, I'm sure you have already, but if you haven't, please do give us a like. Please do give us a thumbs up. Please do give us a subscribe. Please do give us a follow. And don't forget to click the notification so that you know when we go live. Idaho says, once you grow ground cherries, they will keep volunteering every year unless you are a very enthusiastic weeder. It's not what I found myself, but maybe because, well, I was going to say maybe because it gets too cold here over winter, but actually it gets much colder where you are, Idaho. So interesting that. Digwell says it would cost me £5 each way to go to my nearest the range. That is something that I cannot answer for anybody, how much it would cost them to go to the range or anything. But you set the challenge, Digwell. Don't forget, guys, we need a challenge, a mission for next week as well. I've got a bit of time this week, so if you want to make it difficult, please do let your suggestions know. Excuse me. Nicholas says, buying a hot composter this week, cheap. A homemade one for £35. Cheaper than materials to make. My compost area finished 20 by 60 foot, all bays with slotted divisions and fronts, tin roof to collect water for IBCs. Fantastic. Composting is something we should talk about one day. Scott says, dehydrated gooseberries sound amazing, be it an intense flavour. I'm trying that. I've not thought of dehydrating gooseberries, but I'm thinking now that would make a really nice little treat. Jenny says, I grow my own for health issues and hate of sprays and potions that they spray our food and the soil in, to help keep environment and wildlife, to reduce the pathetic use of plastic wrap and packaging. That's something actually we haven't actually mentioned anything about the use of plastic so much, have we? That's a good point. And the wildlife as well. We haven't mentioned that tonight. So good to hear that. Fantastic. What else have we got? Digwell says, 1,000 recipes from Cape gooseberries. Just use them like any soft fruit, jam, jelly, coulis, tarts, etc. Fantastic. That's good to know. As I said, I grew them and they were quite prolific when I grew them, but I never really thought what else we could do with them. So this is really interesting. Oh. Right, guys, I tell you what, let's have a look at your photos, because there wasn't many this week, to be honest with you. It's all been a bit busy, hasn't it? So let's get this and put that there. So let's have a look at your photos. First of all, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Let's take the banner off. Which one is it? Brand. There we go. Let's take that off so you can see what I've written at the top. Kate has grown lots of dried beans. I found this picture really interesting, actually, because there's obviously runner beans, cannellini beans, good mix of all these different dried beans. And I've gone this year I've done the Balotti beans as well, which we've got plenty in the larder for, as well as the fact that I've saved some to grow next year as well. And for me, dried beans is something we're going to be doing more of in the future, just because it, again, makes sense. That fact that we don't need to refrigerate or freeze them if they are dried, we can keep them in the larder, and they look good as well. Next, Scott has harvested this lot today for Sunday lunch. And what amazing cornucopia of food going on there. Leeks, kohlrabi, squash, kale, beetroot. Just so much going on. The only thing he did say is that he wished his celery was a bit bigger, but to be honest, I wouldn't complain about that much. I mean, how many people are you feeding with all that, Scott? Let us know in the comments. This one got a lot of attention in the group, actually. Anne has found this wallpaper. It looks amazing. And I literally turned around and said, take my money. I want it. I think that would look great in a lot of our houses, a lot of our sheds. You know, what a fantastic wallpaper this is. I'm going to get it myself because I think it is great. Banicilian also shared this picture of a wonky carrot. To me, it actually looks like there's 5 different carrots that have grown together to make a big one, in all honesty. But, you know, it still tastes just as good, is what I always say. It may be wonky, it tastes just as good. But it's not about making the best looking food, I don't think, when we grow our own. It's about making food that we eat. So please do keep sharing those photos. You can post them in our Facebook group, as many of these photos are done. Send to me via social media like Balicillian did, or email me, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Should be pretty easy to remember that email address, but richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. There we go. So what have we got here? Nicholas says, Idaho, an expensive compost area in the end. Slated divides and fronts, 440, other timber and labour, about £800 to build a compost area. But compost is such an important thing in the garden, especially when you're growing your own food, because you need a lot of it, don't we? We need a lot of it. Turbo Stream says, I've been really bad at taking photos recently, only the odd snap here and there. I spoke about photos in the Supporters Club podcast the other day, and I said, you know, take photos. It acts as a great reminder to flick through and see what happens. I've sort of got back into photography, shall we say. I've never not got into photography, but I've sort of getting back into it. And dusting out my big old camera and taking lots of photos again. And I'm taking lots of photos because I love it. Absolutely love it. Kate says, fab haul, Scott. Indeed it was. Nicholas says, had to take photos of my veggie garden. Arms aren't long enough to stretch to Cornwall. Never mind. See what happens when you get back. Douglas says, keep the verve compost as dry as possible over winter in your bays, as it will deteriorate like all peat-free ones do, which says the best have a 3-month shelf life. I think that's the same with all compost, isn't it? They do lose a lot of their nutrients after a while, but it's always worth any compost that you have, try and keep it as dry and protected as possible, because it does lose some of its vigor. Very cute wallpaper, says Idaho. Yeah, lovely, isn't it? Absolutely lovely. Digwell says, don't forget the photos for the show as well, guys. Yes, let me post a link for that. Where is it? Which one is it? There we go. For the Veg Grower Alternative show. I'm trying to remember if is that next week? Can somebody click on the link? And tell me when I said it was. I can't remember if that was next week or what. Scott says 4 people he was making all that food for. But I'm making a vegetable gratin and we'll freeze most of it to have at a later date. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Digwell says 4th of October. That's not a Sunday, though, is it? The 4th of October. I'm just working it out because that would be next Sunday's the 1st. The 4th of October would be a what is it? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. We might have to do a extra in-between show on the 4th or something, I guess. Digwell says peat compost is okay for years. Just saying, you're all right. Peat compost is okay, but a lot of them have added nutrients, which can get washed out if it's left in. The bags are not really that waterproof. That's the only thing. Often the compost bags have little holes to allow it to breathe and what have you. And when rain gets into that, it can wash nutrients out even of peat-based composts. But they do hold on to it a bit longer than peat-free, of course. Turbo Stream says, not much to photograph this year. Been a poor year on my plot. I lost the momentum and haven't received my mojo. So looking forward towards next year instead. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because I went through that stage. I've, as I said, with my camera, I'm back into it at the moment, but I get so fixated on trying to make everything look acceptable that I forget to take the photos. But what I've learned, this is a little thing that I've learned, and this is partly due to my ADD, and this is what I was saying the other day. So I take a photo, and to me, the garden might look great. I take a photo, I look at that photo when I'm out the situation, and I see a messy area that I didn't see when I was there. So for me, that's the main reason I've started taking a lot more photos. This is my ADD been blocking out the mess that I can't see. Take photos. Take photos is the bottom line. Nicholas says, thanks Digwell, in plastic wrapping and pallets under the ground sheet. There we go. Oh, Anna says it was the 15th of October. That makes more sense. I thought it was something like that. And Turbo Stream says, Link says 15th of October. The 4th was the 4th of September for entries to be sent in by. That's right. There we go. So we've got a couple of weeks. There we go. The 4th of I've extended it because we needed more entries. Jenny is saying, packing going well, garden nearly all cut down. I am sorting and chopping all the plants to take with me to compost in the new veg garden. Veg that wasn't ready to harvest gone to some local pigs. At least it's not being wasted. That's very good to hear. But you're excited to move house though. Indeed. Phone going to answer machine. I'm getting crackling from something. I don't know if you guys are hearing that crackling as well, but I am. What else have we got? Nicholas says, I'm afraid I don't think I'll be entering anything this year. No worries. We're gonna, if it's good, then we're gonna, or if it works out well, we're gonna do it again next year anyway. Digwell says, what I meant, which says, is that the peat-free ones tend to carry on decomposing. Oh, there we go. We've got a caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Richard. It's Nicola in Sussex.
Hello, Nicola. How are you today? And how's your dad?
Yeah, not so bad. Dad's dad. He feels all right in himself, but obviously we don't know what's bubbling under the surface. And it's just play it by ear, really, each day.
Excellent. Well, I think we're all sending him our best.
Yeah, I know it's a difficult situation and there's no happy ending, but as long as we keep him as comfortable as possible, that's all we can hope for.
Sure. So what did you call up and talk about today?
So I'm sort of phoning up, one, to say hi, And two, I know I mentioned about the expense of my compost area. And also there's going to be other expenses because my new veg growing area is on the slope. I mentioned about 2 years ago I wanted to have it terraced, and hopefully it's going to happen in the next month. But when you look at the expense of things like the compost area, that's going to make thousands of litres of good compost if I do it right. It's also going to save water that would go down the drainage system, and save having to use chlorinated water that comes through your tap, which is better all round for the environment. So the initial costs are quite expensive, and obviously I don't have the physical strength or capability to build some of these structures. I'm not very good at DIY, and some of these things have been built like proper buildings without roofs and walls, like the compost bay. They're, fall before timbers. So yes, it's a lot of money, but I think in the long term it's going to be a very good investment. So I shouldn't really start thinking, oh God, that's cost me so much. Like moving my shed, I've moved it from a back courtyard behind my bungalow. It was here when I bought the house. Sorry, here, it's down there. Obviously I'm in Sussex. And it's had to have a new floor because it had rotted and the rats had chewed through it. But it's just making the space more usable for me. So they weren't heavily into growing veg, but now the shed that I want to have a long potting veg, benching, and containers, I've got like yours from IKEA to put perlite and vermiculite and potting compost in. I'm going to have shelves for all my pots, and I'm going to actually insulate it. I've picked up quite a lot of free insulation off of Facebook Marketplace, so I might even have my grow lights in there with my little windowsill propagators, just so that it keeps it out the house, because like your wife Amanda was saying, you're taking over my kitchen windowsill and table. So we do have these initial expenses and ongoing expenses with growing, but I tend to try and get the bargains when I can, like the compost or the veggie pod. And then when I have to pay out money, I've just got to look at it as an investment for the future.
I was going to say, you've got a 3-acre site, so
a 3.5
acre site. So, you need a lot of compost to do what you want to do anyway. So you need a big composting area, but you're also going to be able to produce quite a bit of compost material on that size land. So it's a big investment, but it's not when you take it into the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, the 3.5 acres isn't going to be totally for growing vegetables. So at the moment, I'm limited to the small area I've got at the front, which is about 50 foot by 25, and it tapers down to about 12. I've then got the new area, which is about 0.2 of an acre, which has got to be terraced. And luckily, I've got a friend who's going to do it for pretty low cost. I'm hoping to put a campsite in that will open next year on part of the fields, and then it's going to be animals on the other. So I'm hoping to get some piggy wicks and a couple of alpacas or 3. And then I've got my chickens and ducks. So I'd really like a cow, though, but I'd like a miniature one.
They're a lot of work, cows.
Well, you can get miniature cows, so you have them like pet donkeys and stuff. You don't have them but I'm looking to get some goats for milking and all that good stuff. But at the moment, like I said, everything's on hold. Yes, I'm in Sussex. It could be that I go back in a week's time after Dad's discharge because the care in place is sufficient. But it looks like it's coming to a point where he's not safe to be left on his own, even though he can manage most of the time with the carers. It's so that if he has a fall in the night or something happens in the night, there's somebody around.
Sure, yeah.
So I've just got to put my needs for growing. I just hope I don't go back. Well, I know I'm going to, because nothing's covered, so I'm going to go back to the weed mountain. So it's a bit like when these people say, oh, I've just got this lovely allotment plot, and it's like up to your chin in weeds. I think I'm going to have the same when I go back to Cornwall.
Sure.
So hey, I'll just have to fight it in the spring.
Sure. But the question we were asking, why do you grow your own food?
Okay, so I got quite addicted with growing vegetables. I would say about back in the 90s. I did a little bit before, but I really got into it because I then had a rental house with a 75-foot garden in Brighton, which is pretty unusual. So I really got into growing veg there, and we tamed an area that had, brambles that were up and above your head. I didn't even know that part of the garden existed until we cleared it.
Yeah.
And then I always wanted to have a small holding, which is what I class my place in Cornwall as. So why do I enjoy watching seedlings sprout out. There's just so excitement of this little thing pushing its way through the soil, and then becomes a cabbage or a tomato plant or something like that. The flavour of homegrown stuff you can't beat. I know there's a few things, like I would say onions as well as garlic. You can't really tell a lot of difference between shop and homegrown. But things like fruit or vegetables, 100% different. It's nice that you can just go outside your door and pick it. It's nice that when you're doing your gardening, you lose yourself. It's good for mind calming, because I'm ADHD, OCD, all of these nice things, and my brain just doesn't stop. So when I'm in the veg garden, it's actually one of the few places that my brain will calm down and focus on pulling the weeds out or planting the seeds or whatever. So flavour, knowing that I'm not ruining our planet by using X, Y, and Z to make things bigger, brighter, easier to transport, whatever it is. So from that point of view, I'm doing my bit to save our planet, because obviously it's not in a very good state at the moment, as we all know. And to grow things that you don't get in the supermarket very easily, or if you do, it's blooming expensive. Like I was mentioning earlier, the Cape gooseberries, but they are starting to sell more like the rainbow carrots, but they'll put a premium on it. Yet we can grow rainbow carrots for no different than the orange carrots, because we just put it in the ground.
That's a very good point. I didn't think of that. A very good point. I haven't got main sweet corn this year. It never actually got into the ground. It's still in the seed trays, and it's about a foot tall and still trying to produce cobs. But I did do the flint corn, and it's 6-7 foot tall, and hopefully I'll get to it before the mice or rats get to it. But I grew that because I love the colour of it. You've got all these different gems of little corns within that cob, and it's for doing popcorn. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I think there's many sides why people grow, and also, it's got higher vitamin content. It's a better flavour. It's okay. It might not have such a long shelf life, but in other ways, it can have a longer shelf life. So if you do something like potatoes, if you keep it in the compost in the dry, then your potatoes will last better. And they always say a potato that hasn't had its skin washed will last longer than one that's still got a bit of dirt on it. Yeah. So I think it's multifold why I grow vegetables.
Excellent. Well, that definitely answers the question. And I think you're echoing what many of the audience are saying here tonight anyway.
And I love that wallpaper too. But I think we should have a little competition where we all have a go. Say, I don't know, not A4, what's in that? It would be about an A2 size bit of paper, and we draw our own wallpaper and have a little competition.
Well, actually, the wall behind me, I do want to get some sort of pictures or something from you guys up there at some point in the future. So that might be something we look at doing.
I just thought it's something simple with our nights are drawing in, like somebody else said, it's getting dark now.
Yeah.
And we have a bit of paper that we draw our own Sanders or whatever it was, make a wallpaper.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of colouring it in like everybody else,
Yeah. Well, that's something we can think about doing.
I'll love you and leave you, and thank everybody for their kind wishes about my dad.
Yeah, no worries. I think they've all heard that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, cheers, Richard.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
You take care. Cheers. Bye. There we go. That was Nicola from Cornwall, but in Sussex at the moment. So answering that very question. Well, sorry, I was reading that one out from Digwell. What I meant, which says, is that peat-freeze ones tend to carry on decomposing. That makes sense in the bags and end up as an unusable mess. I guess they might go a bit anaerobic in the bag. That does make sense. But yeah, always got to be careful. Always keep your compost covered anyway, because it can get washed out. Ballycillian, we were talking about taking photos. Photos of a bad year are better, so when a good year arrives, you can see how much your plot has improved. That's exactly right. The photo of what your allotment looked like when you first took it on makes a difference as well. Scott says the taking photos podcast, really enjoyed that one, and something I'm going to start doing. I'll work better off of visual reference. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Oh, Skinny Jean Garner has joined. Evening, Mr. Suggett, here for the final half hour. I hope you are well, buddy. Idaho says hello, and Bethan says, me and the family came to see your show in Colchester, and that was awesome. So much fun. Thanks very much, Lee. There you go. There you go. There we go. Right. I have got a grow along video for you guys. This week we have actually been sowing our garlic, so it seems like a good opportunity to sow garlic. So this week's grow along is one of my favourites, good old garlic. This is a variety called Casablanca, which I am growing here this year at home. So all I'm going to do first of all is just peel off this papery outer to free up all the cloves. Now I've actually sown a load of garlic down on the allotment just yesterday, which is a video coming out later this week with that included. And as I say, I like garlic, so I'm just growing a new variety this year with this Casablanca here at home. So we've got quite a few of these cloves now. We really want to get rid of all that papery stuff. Now what we want to do, I've got a dibber here. We're just going to dib a hole, take a garlic clove. We want to make sure that that flat end is down and the pointy end up. Drop it in the hole and repeat. I want to give them about 10 centimetres of space and repeat. Now what I've actually got down on the allotment is a tool that acts as a dibber, so I only push it into the ground once and it does the whole row for me, which actually makes it a little bit quicker and easier to do. Now I always find that this is about the right time to start sowing garlic. It gets a good amount of time in the ground. It gets also, what is often needed for garlic, is a bit of time below 10 degrees Celsius in order to make it create cloves. Without that bit of coldness, we tend to get just a solid bulb, so which we don't want. So it's a good time, I think, to start sowing it. This is a time I usually do it. Looking after garlic is easy. We put it in the ground, we leave it to grow, we make sure it's kept well watered, we make sure we have plenty of feed. Fish blood and bone is probably a good one to use, although I do have a proprietary garlic feed that came from a garlic farm. It's not the cheapest, but it does the job. And that's it. We leave these to grow until the longest, well, until just after the longest day, and then we harvest them and we enjoy these great tasting things. Now I know Digwell has said that he's not bothering to grow garlic because he finds it cheap enough to buy in a supermarket, which is a valid point, but I still think it's worth growing. Right, there we go. That is the garlic sown for this year here. Indeed, that was a Casablanca garlic being sown at home in my plot this afternoon in such a rush, which is why it was a very quick video like that. But it's got it done. It got it done. It doesn't take long, actually, when you focus your mind to sow garlic. Anybody got any garlic growing tips? Then let us know in the comments as well. Now, I'm just going to get a bit of paper ready because it's coming to the last 15 minutes. I need from you guys a seed to sow next week, a mission for the next week, and a subject for next week. So if anybody's got any ideas on any of those, then let us know in the comments. Right, what's going on in the comments? Digwell says 1950s house, especially council houses, had such large gardens as the area had to be able to provide for a family of 4. If that was a rule today, there would be no spare land in the UK. I think there was a report that said if everybody was growing their own vegetables, then the UK could be self-sufficient on most things. I've always believed, this is my stance on it, that if we are all growing our own vegetables, I don't want to take work from the farmers, but the farmers can then focus on growing the things that we can't produce at home. Things like wheat, maize, stuff for flour and things like that. Obviously, cows for milk and meat, sheep, etc., etc. All those sort of things that we can't really do at home. And I also think then what that would lead many people to do is actually buy better quality meat or products that we can't produce at home, because you're saving on your grocery bills by growing decent quality vegetables. That you can spend a little bit more on the meat or things like that. That's my belief, and I'd love to know if anybody agrees with me. And as Digwell does go on to say, there will always be a place for supermarket food, which is true. Which is very, very true. Scott says, broad beans for seed to sow, or is it too early? No, we could do broad beans. We'd be doing them next month anyway, but that be one I write down. I could certainly do broad beans for the next week if it's good. Toby Stream says, I will be missing in action next week. Off to Anglesey next Sunday for 3 days. So sown any seeds you like. Fair enough. Have a good time in Anglesey, though. Digwell says, my garlic tips sow 4-inch deep and twice as wide apart for your hoe for weeding. I tell you what, I'm a little annoyed. I got my hoe out today and it started to snap. I don't know how it's happened, but my hoe is a bit broken. So a little annoyed about that. I'm going to have to get a new handle or a new hoe. I'm not sure what. Bethan says, I planted my garlic with 20 centimetres between each bulb, which meant the bulbs grew big and I could establish plants in between the bulbs for harvesting before harvesting the garlic in May. It's good thinking. Good thinking. Very good thinking, that. Idaho says, I love growing garlic. It grows easily for me. I hate buying garlic from a store. Organic garlic is very expensive here. There we go. I love growing garlic as well. For me, I always feel that signifies the start of the growing season. Many people think the growing season starts at the new year. For me, it starts now, because that's when we're putting the garlic in the ground to start for next year. My sort of thought. Nicholas says, plant the veggie pod over winter salad. Over winter for the mission. Over winter salad. That's an idea. That's definitely something we could look at. So far, we've got broad beans for the seed and overwintered salad in the veggie pod for the mission. Digwell says, Wolfgarten rules. I know. I hear a lot of good things about Wolfgarten. I'm just not sure. I love my hoe. That's the annoying thing is, I love my hoe. It's been a good, useful tool for me for a while. Do I really want to just get rid of it because it's broken? Well, I mean, it's only a snapped handle. I can replace the handle. Or perhaps I could just have a shorter handle. Not sure yet. Turbo Stream says you need fork handles for forks. Fork handles, of course. The old, was it the two Ronnies? Fork handles, indeed. Bethan says, I'm covering my garlic with mesh this winter as it has suffered from allium leak minor in the past. Yeah. Yeah. I've not had no experience of allium leak minor, so let us know, Bethan, how you get on with it. By the way, if anybody on that subject does have anything they want to send a video in each week, you're more than welcome to. I'm more than happy to play videos from you guys as well. Ian says, Richard, you will have to get a trigger hoe with one new handle. I probably would do that, to be honest, because I do like, I just think it's wasteful to throw it out, but I'm just thinking what I might do instead. Yeah. Bethan says, I use Wolfgarten too. Really versatile. Yeah, I hear a lot of good things about Wolfgarten. It's for me, I like the old tools. There's something about them that I just like and prefer, the old looking tools. But Kate actually says, I second Digwell's Wolfgarten as well. As I said, I just like the old fashioned tools, but they've got to be practical at the same time. Digwell says, I'm darn you lot. You are like the devil on my shoulder. I will grow some garlic. I used to be indecisive. Now I am just not sure. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, is all I'm going to say to that. Ido says, I'm sorry I've been MIA in the last couple of weeks. I'm actually searching for a different property. The city is encroaching. Wherever I end up will be a HOA or CCRS. What's a CCRS? I know HOA, and I think they are the worst thing ever, but a CCRS, I'm not sure. Hope you find somewhere. It's annoying, isn't it, when things like that happen? Beck says, going to eat some very decent allotment gratin now. Indeed. Please feel free to share a picture or even share a recipe as well. I haven't had a gratin for a while, thinking about it. Nicholas says, dig it from fools and horses. I've had this broom 30 years, 10 new handles and 15 new heads. Indeed, yeah. But I do like my old tools, and I mean that in the sense that I mean that in the sense, when you look at a tool and you know it's old, like the type your grandfather would use. I like those sort of tools. The modern ones just don't have the same feel to it in many cases. Scott says, I wasn't going to grow garlic for the same reason as Digwell, but it's become part of the gardening years, so I think I will have to do it. I think it's worth doing. I mean, I grow lots of garlic. I find it preserves quite well, and we use it a lot. And I always save the biggest garlic bulb to plant out the following year as well. Let's have a Tools Week then, otherwise known as Wolfgarten Week. Tools Week. So subject for next week is going to be tools. That's a good one. There was one on my list about that, wasn't it? Your favourite tool and must-have tools. So along those lines, it's going to be about tools. I'll see what we can do. Yeah, I think that'd be something along those lines next week. I want to see your tools. Let's see your garden tools. Send us a picture of all your tools. TurboStream says, after this year, my alliums will be under mesh as well. So there's been a problem going there. 2 new handles, 3 new hoes. The hoe blade themselves last for a long time, I think. Anyway, it's not like they wear out. And if they do, it takes a very long time, a lot of sharpening. So who knows? Jenny says, I'm taking all my cut down plants and straw bales when we move. Old garden will help create the new. I also have a good supply of organic cow manure and bedding over winter. Yeah, I always think that's a good thing to do. Scott says, Wolfgarten are great but not cheap, so building a collection slowly. I have heard about them being great but not cheap. Give it a go. Digwell says, that sounds nice, Bex. Indeed, it does sound very, very nice, Bex. Your allotment gratin. Please do share a picture. That would be great. Jenny says, my new garden is heavy clay, so lots of organic matter on cardboard over the winter to make the beds for springtime onwards. I'm researching raised bed options. My name is on the local allotment site. Jenny, please do share a picture of your new garden before you start so we can see it as it progresses. I think that would be good to see. Ian says the old tools have a finer edge and are way stronger than new ones. That's my thoughts as well. It's just something quite magical about it. I'm trying to think, can I grab some of my old tools quickly to show you what I mean? CCRs are covenants and restrictions. Yeah, I think we do have those here actually in some cases, but very rare. Digwell says, good idea with the tools. Yeah, we're going to do tools next week. So I want to see your garden tools. A bit of a chat about garden tools is what we're going to do. I'll work it all out, but if you can send pictures or any questions you might have on garden tools, then please do send them to me. Post them in the group or send to me via social media or my email, richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Scott says, Bex is my partner, has been watching from the sidelines for some time. She helps on the allotment and has now joined the group. Fantastic. Always good to see more people, as you know. Always good to see more people. Now it makes sense about the allotment gratting. I always try and if I see anybody new, I always want to encourage them to participate as much as possible because I think it's always good. Ian says, I use wolf tools too, but the pusho is not as strong as my Swoho. So we've only got a few minutes left to go. Let me show you what I mean by my old tool. It's right here. Let me bring you over. Got a new camera set here. So this is my old one. As you can see, I was doing some hoeing earlier before I came on. And, these handles are so old, they're going to last a long, long time. But it's just started. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Let's see if it's better on this camera. No, it's just a crack just here where it started to go, which is really, oh God, nearly hit my light there. Really annoying. And I'm not happy about that at all. Stay. We have to, as I said, a lot of my tools are what I call the old-fashioned ones with the wooden handles. There's just something I like about them. There's something I do like about them. Nicholas says, I look on Facebook Marketplace for second-hand tools. I do exactly the same. I got a bit carried away a few years ago and ended up with loads and loads. But a lot of my tools I don't use, I've started selling on at car boots and stuff as well. Things like, how many spades do you really need? It's a good question. How many spades do you need? That's something we'll answer next week. Idaho says, when you buy a property with CCRs, you sign a paper saying you agree to abide by the covenants, conditions and restrictions. Yes. We have, I think, like some houses you have to, here in the UK anyway, some houses when you have to sign certain things that if a church needs money for a new steeple or something, you have to add a bit of cash to it. So there are things like that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking. And some places don't allow chicken keeping or pig keeping and things like that. So there you go. Digwell says duct tape rules, wrap it up. I could do that, couldn't I? But I'm thinking I might do something with it and get a new hoe as well. That might be a mission for the following week or something. Digwell says, off to film my tool now. Fantastic. And Nicholas says, I had a handle like that. My ex-partner broke. He used some super duper glue. The fracture point was still good 20 years on. Yeah, I might try that then. I might try that. I mean, I can tell that handle is a little bit on the dry side, so I probably didn't give it enough of linseed oil last week to help it. Right. Most of the CCRs originated in California. They want golf course type lawns, no weeds, restrictions on smelly livestock, and no excess vehicles. Yeah. I want to say something land of the free, but I don't want to insult anyone at the same time. Council bylaws here in the UK. Council bylaws, or there are rules So a lot of our land was owned by the Duke of Norfolk, so there are rules on that as well. So yeah. Ian says electric tape will help for now till you can get a new handle. P.S. Great to finally meet my gardening hero. Cheers for a great chat. No, it was great to meet you as well, Ian. So hopefully we'll do it again soon. Nicholas says my old house said I couldn't boil bone for glue. 1900s build. Wow. That's amazing. Anne says I got regular garlic and elephant garlic to plant. My neighbour and I do it during the full moon. Oh, interesting. And it worked well last year. There is a type of garden where you do garden by the moonlight, isn't it? Or garden by the moon sea cycles. I can't remember. Biodynamic gardening. Well, I've just realised we have gone just past 7:30. I'm getting hungry now, so I need to go and get my dinner. So thanks so much for the chat, guys. It's been absolutely wonderful. I think this chat was a good one, actually. You seem to really like the conversation, so all good. But we will be back again next Sunday where we're going to have Tool Talk. So get your ideas going for that. Love to see some videos. Love to see some photos. Yeah, that's it. You take care, guys. I'll see you again next time.